In the case of a butterfly effect, is that a butterfly flapped its wings and the dust of air from its wings had turned into a tornado. Such effects were highlighted in movies like Back to the Future, Spider-Man and the Spider-Verse, and so on. So, what's to say that if a person goes back in time to a point he saved, a single change made in that won't alter the entire outcome of the future. So, thus, what we are saying is, it is always better to be safe than sorry. Because we don't really know if the change made in the past will lead to a better outcome in the future or a bad one. Now, my second argument is that it makes people neglect consequences. We as humans are taught to reflect before taking actions. Because some actions have terrible consequences which we cannot go back in time and change them. So, if a person has a device which helps them go back in time to alter what they did, won't that make a person commit more crimes? Because a person who commits crimes is not worried about the consequences in the future. He can always go back in time and commit the crimes even more. And hence, we as team proposition believe that this device will bring more harm than good. Hence, proposed.
I'll be starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. A very good afternoon to this team panel of judges, my team opposition, and worthy opponents. I stand before you all as the first speaker of the team opposition, and we are proud to oppose this motion that this House believes this device will do more harm than good. So firstly, ladies and gentlemen, this is an actor motion where an individual is given this device, and we contextualize this motion on the basis of the merits and demerits that the usage of this device will do to that one person, right? So over here, what's important to notice is that the other stakeholders and external factors will not be affected because we're only looking at what is good for the individual and not for everyone as a whole. Alright, firstly, moving on to the refutations that I have for the first speaker of the House proposition. They have said that it may not lead to a better outcome in the future, but I think they've completely ignored one of the factors which was there in the info slide, that the memory is saved. So if you know what has happened, there are more likely chances of you to correct those mistakes, and I'll be elaborating about that further in my first argument as well. So them saying that no, we're going to make even worse decisions in the future, that's completely illogical, because I think that if we're given a chance, we 9 out of 10 times do correct our mistakes rather than repeating it again, but that's just foolish to do. Moving on to the first argument that I would like to propose is that this device is really nice for fixing past errors. Now, we do live in a toxic world, believe it or not, right? We are judged miserably on committing mistakes. And if this can act like a redemption for us, like, okay, yeah, we sparked the fight, we sparked the conflict with the person, we weren't supposed to say something, we really got carried on with our emotions, we said something really mean, and the damage is so big, the emotional damage is so big that just saying sorry or apologizing cannot really, change the effect on its own. But if we have this device, you can return back to the moment where you started all of this, and you're just establishing a better human connection, right? So you are happier, you don't have conflicts. And okay, now this is just one example about conflict, but look at life decisions. Life decisions where it decides whether it'll make or break your life. They're really significant for the future. You will get a chance to reflect on them again. You're reliving that and you're reflecting on your past mistakes. So there are more chances of you to fix them altogether rather than committing something even miserable, right? So any person with right sense of mind or anyone who's reflected enough on their mistakes will correct it and rather not make something even worse. And the argument number 2 that we would like to propose would be that there is a new dimension to the same time period. Let's say I go back to yesterday and we are reliving the day again. So I'm giving a completely new scope to it. I'm giving a really innovative and different aspect to the same day that has already lived. So my memory is saved. This is really important to note, panel. So I'll have the memory of the first day, the first time I lived that moment. And now the second time I'm doing it again, but in a different way. So I have the same thing, but in 2 different aspects. So I'm getting to live the short life that we say, that life is really short, but we're living it in many different ways possible, right? And we're able to enjoy it to the max. maximum level. Because, of course, if you have more time to give something that you really like, let's say I really like summer, but winters are approaching, so I go back to summer and I'm reliving it again. So the team opposition is prioritizing happiness of an individual. Because this is an actor motion, we're looking at what an individual will be more happy in, right? So we are prioritizing happy individuals as compared to the team of proposition who don't have substantially happy individuals. And of course, the good will outnumber the harm of this device. Moving on, it's also increasing productivity because say, yeah, we have to do so many things. But we can't really do everything at once because, of course, time is restricted and you can't really do everything. You can't be all over the place. But if you're given this opportunity, let's say I was in a talent show. I can either dance or I can either sing. But once I go back, I dance. The other time I go back, I sing. So I'm basically not having any regrets in life. Regret is something that is so terrible. Once you get regret, once you have this feeling in you, you just keep rethinking your life decisions and maybe sulking about it the entire life. And if you're given this opportunity, you can go back and do whatever you want to do. You're increasing your productivity. And of course, if you're talking about time management, notice that this device is always with us. So time is basically our friend. We're not talking about time management as a problem here. Rather, it's more in our favor. And also, how many of us actually enjoy playing video games? All of us, right? But imagine if we're given a chance to be in a video game in real life. This is going to add another element, another aspect to our life. We're going to be so much more interested to live our life. There's another fun aspect, a fundamental thing that's actually lacking in our mundane, monotonous life these days. So with all of this being said, I think the team opposition has a really upper hand. And I don't see any reason why this device has more harm than good. So with that being said, I would like to rest my case, and I feel like the team opposition has a clear upper hand. Thank you.
Thank you for a very fine speech. I would like to welcome the second speaker for Team Prop, who can raise their points.
Good morning, one and all present here, honorable judges and my fellow debaters. I stand here as the second speaker of the proposition. The House that strongly believes that the device which was mentioned and described in the information slide would do more harm than good. I, as a second speaker, will be backing up my first speaker, stating my own arguments and rebut some of the arguments stated by the opposition. So first, to start with my rebuttal. First, doesn't the focus of consequences only being on the individual really ignore an even larger aspect of the problem, the consequences on other people? The individual is a very small part of this whole effect, of this whole situation. The butterfly effect, as the speaker once stated, is something that really affects others in the scenario. The tornado in the effect does not affect the butterfly. The butterfly is somewhere in some other part of the world. So we have to consider the fact that the device can do a lot more harm to others than you know. Second. Okay, so we learn from our mistakes 9 out of 10 times. But why would we really have to if we had such a device? We wouldn't need to learn much. We just say, I'll do it next time, I'll do it next time, I'll do it next time. You would get lazy since you always have another chance. You know, you would get weak, maybe even miserable. And third rebuttal, if we could always have what we wanted, would we really actually be happy though? Don't you enjoy summer, as the opposition stated, more when you get through a freezing winter? There is a reason why time is seemingly linear. When you go through harder times, you appreciate the sweeter and the nicer times. And fourth, if we did really have to manage our time and we could, like the opposition mentioned, how much we love video games, if we could play video games all night, ignore all of our responsibilities, would we also become seemingly miserable? And now for my arguments. My first argument. So we know that with such power and a device like this, it makes a person careless and reckless. Now think about it. You're given a device with which you can pretty much time travel. Well, the correct term would be time leap. honestly. So a person with such power would have no regard for his actions or his consequences or the consequences. Why care about anything you do in the present when you can just go back to the past? Like, man is weak and easily tempted. You'd say, I messed up. Go ahead.
Do you realize we're not going back to the past? When we pause time, does the speaker realize the individual has to return to the same point where he paused it?
Well, isn't that time in the past? And the person loses any care for the present since there is no need to care for it. So what if they don't care about the present? Now let me tell you. Well, that sounds scarily close to depression or any other mental illness, doesn't it? Well, when you're drunk on such my omniscient power, man would have no regard for anyone or anything. You know, you get mentally unstable, you don't really care about anyone else, anything, you do whatever you want, and it reduces man to an animal. Such power destroys man. Sure, the device may do good, but how much and at what cost? And speaking about how the power could change man, I will also continue with my second argument. You know, the people tend to do more harm than good. There is a reason why there are the statement or the phrase, the big bad world is used commonly. There are several less than good people in this world. You know, power corrupts a person, and I would like to ask the opposition this question. Name a dictator who has done good for his or her own country. You just can't, because, and I use an analogy because some of the most powerful people in the world are dictators. And when you get the ability to pretty much time travel, you become the most powerful human alive. And when humans gain power, they tend to do good only to themselves. Why? When they have power, they're not accountable to anyone. So they naturally tend to, do things that harm others. If people are given access to such a powerful device, they most likely will not use this device to do good. What stops them from murdering others or robbing a bank? And then if they get caught, they just go back. And now, okay, let's say the opposition may state that the information slide says that memories are kept in the mind of an individual. So due to this, he might not experience the same guilt over and over again. But why would you or any other possessor of this device feel guilty or ashamed? Because others would not think that we're, a bad person. It's this shame and guilt comes from others thinking that others think that we're a bad guy. But if we could just, move back in time and then, fix all our mistakes, do whatever we want to, we wouldn't feel bad at all. Why would individuals feel guilty if there are no traces of their actions in the minds of others? This completely counters this point if it is stated. And with this, I will move into my third point. Yeah, okay, so I do realize that I am kind of repeating my point, or I have similar points, but this is the basis of our argument. So we know that this device can definitely do good, but at least a bit. But for how long, really? Like the speaker once stated, we don't know the magnitude of the time interval, the magnitude of the explosion, so there's a lot of uncertainty in this. And once it leaves the possessor's person, it pretty much becomes unusable because it blows up. Unless the possessor of the device is kept in inhumane, jail-like, or even worse conditions, for constant monitoring, which is actually doing a lot of harm for the person too. It is actually pretty harmful. The location and the use of the device can't be monitored without, with a guarantee if they are not contained in such a way. And someone might even try swiping it from him. If he's free, he might lose it. We're all careless at times, aren't we? Then you can't even use the device for that long. So we know that the good that you can do with it is extremely limited in terms of time and maybe magnitude. And we know that a lot more harm can be done with it. And with that, I rest my case. Thanks very much.
Very first speech, they say please use the points.
I'll be starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. A very good day to esteemed panelists and respected opponents. I'm the second speaker from side opposition, and starting off, I'll be rebutting the points stated off by the opposing team, and I'll be reinstating my first speaker's points in case of any clarifications, and then further providing my own arguments. Now let's start off with rebuttals. So the first thing that the first speaker from the proposition team come up here and talk about is the butterfly effect. Now, I don't really understand why this is relevant in this context, because notice how the butterfly isn't pausing its wings, it's not stopping time. As in, the butterfly is there, maybe it's flapping its wings, and that's influencing a much larger thing. But then, that's still happening without pausing time. That's what we're telling you. That particular problem is not exclusive to this debate, as in it's something that generally happens. So I don't understand why it's relevant over here. And then they also talk about how they also tell us about that people are going to get lazy, we are going to ignore our responsibilities, but notice how we still have to come back to that point in time. I'll give you an example for this. Right now I have to do math homework, let's say. I'm pausing time and I'm just taking some time for myself and just relaxing, and I come back to that point. I still have to do my math homework. It's not like someone else is going to do it for me. So how is that making me lazier? Now, they also give us a lot of examples about how power corrupts people and humans turn into animals. Again, I don't see why this is accepted.
You say that if you could time travel, as you stated, you could take a break for math homework, but wouldn't that lead to you always taking breaks for math homework? Wouldn't that make you indisciplined or academically weak? Is that like a negative in the end?
Well, see, we've already stated that this is an active motion, so it's about how it's benefiting me. So even at the end of the day, because again, I still have to do it, so it's not making me indisciplined. And secondly, even if that affects like my capability to manage time, it doesn't affect me negatively because I'm still happy. I'm still able to get my work done. It's not directly impacting me. Now, they also, as I was talking about the man to animal thing, they never tell us what those harms are. Because we already tell you, we don't care about the other stakeholders specifically, it's just about the individual, and we tell you about how it positively impacts the individual. Now, even if we give them the benefit of the doubt and we take society as a whole, they don't exactly tell us what those harms are. But they do mention about murdering a person and then getting caught and then running away. But notice, if I murder a person, I get caught and I pause time. Even then, when I press the return button, I have to come back to that exact same point. So at the end of the day, I am getting caught no matter what. Now they also tell us that people won't feel guilty if they can fix their mistakes. But this is so ironic. People fix their mistakes because they see something wrong in what they did in the past. The entire point that you're fixing your mistakes is because you feel bad, you feel guilty, you feel regretful. Now they also tell us that it will eventually blow up, but here's a simple solution for this. Let's say I'm over here, I don't exactly want to use the device right now, but I can just click stop, 1 second later I can click return. So I have used it, but not exactly used it, but doing this at specific occasion, regularly, I can continue using that device even if I'm not using it for a really big thing. Now, I've been coming over to my first argument, which is it provides more flexibility and helps us to bounce back. We know that we live in a very competitive and stressful world. It's a constant rat race, right? Who gets the most awards, who gets there, and over time we see individuals burning out. And this is really bad for their mental health. But on our side of the world, because we have this device, we can pause that time and we can come back into that situation again, still completing our work but feeling less mentally drained. At the same time, most individuals don't take these mental health breaks because they're scared of missing out. Oh, by the time I take that break, others are going to have done more, others are going to have moved forward. That doesn't happen here because we're literally pausing time. Other people are just stuck there. So we can go, we can take that break, and we can come back. And therefore, we don't have to miss out on these things. We don't have to worry constantly about others moving forward as well. Now, let me move on to another layer to this, that there's always this choice. Notice panel that we say that it's going to destroy itself. It doesn't mean that we constantly have to use it. I just gave an example. I can pause it and I can return it just 1 second. I have used it, but not for a really big reason, but I've still used it. And the machine considers that as a use. And therefore, I don't actually need to regularly use it for any of my own purpose for it to continue working. And that brings me to my second argument, which is a safety net. We're human beings, right? We're bound to make mistakes. But unfortunately, this is, substantiating my first speaker's point. We don't really live in a world that forgives these mistakes. So if I, as a human being, is given a bigger opportunity to go back and fix that mistake, do you not think that it's going to make my life more peaceful, more better, improve my connections with others, and even make their lives more peaceful? Because I'm no longer in conflict with them. Right? Let's say I'm arguing with a person and I say something. It's not just me feeling guilty, that other person's also getting hurt. But if I have this device, before I say something, I can pause, I can think for a bit, bit about how they're gonna think, what's the impact of what I'm gonna say, not only am I feeling less guilty and me being a better person, the other person also feels better in that situation and is less hurt. So even if you take the community aspect, which is not really relevant, but even if we give them the benefit, we see that even other people are happier on our side. And due to all those reasons, I think we're gonna have
Thank you, speaker, for a very fine speech. May the third speaker, Team Frost, please raise the point.
I'll be starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Panel, the biggest factor and indicator for the opposition to lose this debate is that they fail to realize the fact that if you lose the whole device, won't you regret your whole life? You will always have that constant thought, if I had this device, I could have done this. If I had this device, I would not be suffering like this. You fail to answer that question. And the speaker once said that the individual's happiness is important, but what about the other people in society? Don't they also have things that we need to take into consideration? We are regretting and being guilty of our mistakes just because others know what we have done. If we are able to go back from our mistake and go back to another point in time, it erases all traces of our actions. And speaker 2 based upon whole arguments upon pausing in time and reflecting and thinking about the actions. The motion and information slide clearly stated that you can only go back to a same point in time. So all your arguments are completely baseless. You cannot pause time. You have to go back to a same point in time, which is not pausing. And while you pause, and even if you could pause the time, I'm taking your argument into a little bit consideration. Even if you could pause time, you cannot reflect. You can only stay still. You cannot think, and you cannot reflect upon the argument, and you cannot reflect upon what you have done. And also, what is the whole purpose of life? We learn from our mistakes. We learn from others. We learn from mistakes, and we try not to repeat it in the future. When we correct mistake, we understand what we have gotten wrong. If we commit a mistake, and then we can just go back to the past, and then what stops us from caring about a mistake in the future? I could write a test without concentration, and then if I failed the test, I could just go back. What stopped me from not writing the test again with concentration? Your arguments are baseless, and the second speaker has completely based their arguments upon the sole idea of stopping time and then reflecting upon the argument. And this is not the only contradiction that they had with the motion. This clearly shows the lack of understanding of the motion. And you also stated that if you could do this, regret is not there. The motion clearly states that your memories lie with you. And also they have stated that video games are so interesting, and therefore wouldn't your life be awesome if you had a video, if your life was a video game? They fail to understand the fact that life is so much more sophisticated, nuanced, and complicated than video games. Life is a story. It's a story of your beliefs, your ideas. Yes.
Do you not think that complicatedness and nuance, etc., will reduce when you actually have time to reflect upon what you're going to do?
Yes, this speaker has directly supported my point by saying that you need to reflect, stating that this speaker has directly shown the point. What was? So you have stated that won't the nuances and sophisticatedness of life reduce. However, if your life wasn't as complicated, wasn't as nuanced, and wasn't as complicated as it could be if the machine was there, what is the purpose of life? If your life was just as simple like a piece of cake, what is the purpose of living a life if it is so simple? Life is filled with treasures. Life is part of learning, is a part of mistakes. Hardships are a part of life. You need to learn from your mistakes. You need to learn from what you have done wrong. You need to experience the mistakes. You need to experience the consequences of your wrong actions. That is part of the point. Your arguments are baseless, and the POI has directly supported my arguments. And also, I would like to apologize for forgetting the POI, and I have corrected my mistake. They have based their whole argument on the concept of going back. They have based their whole argument of pausing in time and then thinking, reflecting, and understanding the action. If you pause in time, you cannot think about the actions. You can only go back to to a past time in the future. And the proposition stated that the time period could, the proposition clearly stated the time period could be anything: 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 1 minute, or even 10 seconds. For example, let's say that even if it was 1 day long, that is enough time. But won't you have a constant sense of fear? Oh my God, I have to use this machine. Oh my God, I have to use this machine. Let's say that you don't have you somehow misplace the device and you are far away. For example, on a plane. What are you supposed to do? Won't you lose the device? And if you lose the device, won't you live your whole life with regret? Oh my God, if I just had this machine at this moment, I will not be suffering this much as I will be suffering right now. If I had this machine, if I hadn't forgotten this machine on that very day, won't I have not suffered? You will live your life with regret. You will live your life in misery, and you will live your life with a sense of no accomplishment. And they have said that it is a safety net. Safety net? Really? Come on. Mistakes are bound to happen in life. The consequences of those mistakes are the things that are part of life. If I had a life full of success, full of the consequences of that success, what is the purpose of me living the life? Sole purpose of life is to experience a life. You need to experience the happiness. Happiness also lies in experiencing your mistakes and correcting them and showing others that you can do something great even after you have done mistakes. If you have done mistakes, you can show them, I can do something great. Various other people have proven this fact, even though it is not completely relevant. Thomas Alva Edison, he has failed so many times. He has failed thousands of times. Oh, wasn't that failure also part of the learning process? While he was giving his speech on audition towards the company that he wanted to sell his inventions to, if he had made a mistake, don't you think that he could have just moved back? That is not a part of life. You have to learn to experience the mistakes. You have to learn to experience the consequences of your actions. You have to learn to experience the true nature of life. And therefore, the arguments made by the opposition are baseless, factless, and do not have any relevance in the motion of this debate. And therefore, we, the proposition, clearly hold a significant upper hand in this debate. Thank you.
I'll be starting in 3, 2, 1. Would you rather a world where we don't have the choice of taking breaks and taking care of ourselves, or a world where we are calm, stable, and have the choice to improve our surroundings and our actions as well? A very good evening, honorable judges, my audience, and my fellow opponents. I actually will be the third speaker, and firstly, I would like to start by quickly summarizing my team's stance and reinforcing whatever argument we provided up till now. Then I'll be moving on to our best case, worst case, and lastly, I'll be rebutting whatever points given by the opposition. Firstly, our team, our first speaker, she came and she talked about how if we have access to such a machine, we're able to improve human connection and we fix our past errors. We're able to relive good memories, and this provides new dimension to such memories as well. And it increases productivity, and it adds a fun element to our lives as well. Our second speaker, she comes and tells us about how this machine provides more flexibility and the time to bounce back, because we live in a stressful world and we honestly do need breaks. And she also tells us about how we have a choice whether we want to use this machine or not. Now, I would like to start with my best case and worst case. In my best case and worst case, I'll be talking about our worst case and their best case and explain to you how our worst is still better than their best. What is our worst? Our worst case, the worst possible case that's possible on our side is escapism, the act of running away. If we become heavily dependent on this device, according to the opposition, we become lazy. How do we become lazy or wrong. Now, plus more on the point of escapism, it can't really be called escaping as we're coming back to the same point of time again, the same scenario no matter what. Their best case is that the individual in case will only use it for terrible things which will affect society as a whole. Now, as our first speaker clearly stated, this is an active motion, so only the individual is affected, and how the other stakeholders which may be affected isn't even the burden of any of our sides. So how does it really matter if an individual is doing something which isn't ethically correct, because we're only thinking about the welfare of the individual. If this ethically wrong thing isn't affecting the individual negatively, why should any of us, proposition or opposition, even care? Because this is an active motion. We don't need to take other stakeholders into consideration at all. We only need to think about the welfare of the individual in case. Now, on to my rebuttals. The first speaker, he comes and tells us about the butterfly effect. But a single change doesn't necessarily always have to be bad, which is what the opposition believes. They come and tell us that the butterfly effect, if we go back in time and we make a change, whatever outcome will happen as a result of it will always be bad. By definition, a butterfly effect doesn't define whether the changes that are caused as a result of your action are positive or negative. Yet the opposition only focuses on the negative. Plus, as I mentioned in my best case, worst case, how does it even matter? Why should we even care if certain changes occur? Because they don't even affect the main and the only stakeholder in this debate, that is the individual. Plus, why would an individual ever make a change knowingly which would negatively affect them? Why would you ever make a change knowing that it's negatively going to affect you? That's not even possible. So the opposition's focus about changes being made by the individual would negatively always affect the world is wrong for two main reasons. Firstly, because the world can't even be affected here, only the individual. And why would the individual ever make a choice which wouldn't positively affect them? Now, on to the second speaker. He talks about man. Now, again, I would like to point out that mankind isn't supposed to be taken into context of this debate at all. They're continuously considering every other stakeholder except the individual himself. But continuing onwards, let's give them grace. The second speaker, he talks about how man becomes an omniscient being and won't care about anyone. But isn't that the point? The individual, not man, doesn't technically need to care for anyone, as this motion only focuses about how the individual is affected. Up till now, all of their arguments are basically focused on every other stakeholder except the individual themselves. Then the third speaker, again, they keep on mentioning about the welfare of other people and how we might feel guilty about our actions. And at this point, we've all continuously explained how this debate doesn't even revolve around other stakeholders. So why does the opposition continuously fail to understand or acknowledge the basic fact? Why would we feel guilty about our actions when they're not even negatively affecting us? The third speaker, he also assumes that we can't learn from our mistakes. Why? Just because we're using a machine? Now, as I mentioned in my best case itself, we're going back to the same point of time. Let's say me and my first speaker were in an argument right now. If I pause the time, take a minute to think about what all I've said, and if I go back to time to fix whatever changes that I've caused, a rift between my first and my second speaker, how is that going to negatively affect me? Am I not learning from my mistakes by doing this? I'm just taking a little bit of time to ponder about what I've done wrong. So why do they continuously expect or assume that we can't learn from our mistakes? That doesn't even make any sense. And we go back to time, doesn't this cause less regret? They believe that on their side it causes less regret, but doesn't going back to time cause less regret on our side, knowing that there was safety net to gone down? Hence, I end my case, but I address myself.
Please speak for a very, very fine speech. May the pledge speaker for team opposition please raise their points.
I'll be starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. A very good day, testing panel judges and opposing team. Today, I, as will prove to you exactly why we have already won this debate. Now let me start off with a stakeholder analysis. Now our side has been repeatedly telling you that since this device is handed out to an individual and we are focused on what the impacts of having that device does to that particular individual, we basically only have to consider that particular individual as a stakeholder. And on our side, what do we see? Those individuals get a chance to fix their mistakes, and therefore it reduces their guilt for making certain mistakes. And we also see that it's better for their mental health because they don't have to be constantly in this rat race, and they can take those breaks without worrying that they're going to fall back on society. And thirdly, because the relationships that they have with others are improved, they're going to have a better social connections, etc. On their side, what do we see? Well, they've never really addressed what it does to this individual at all in this debate, but on the basis of what we've contextualized to you, we see on their side there is a rat race. They have to constantly try to keep up with others. There is no safety net for them to fall back into, and even if they do that a particular mistake, they have to constantly live through their life with that regret. Now, I'll give them the benefit of doubt, and we will take community into consideration. But we tell you that the community relationships actually increase. You hurt less people around you, and therefore it's better for those around you because they're not impacted by the bad actions you do, because you always have that choice before doing that bad action. But on their side, what did they see? They just tell us that it's going to harm community, but we never actually get a response as to how it's going to impact the societies around them and exactly what bad it is. But even if I agree that there will be some bad outcomes, notice that because you have this device, the second that bad outcome or that bad experience starts, you can pause, you can think back about what you can do to ensure this bad outcome doesn't happen, and then you can come back to it. So even if you think of the community aspect, we still have a better case. Now let's do an analysis into the arguments they present. I was only able to pinpoint two major arguments, which is firstly about the butterfly effect, which I still don't understand why it's relevant to this motion, because it can happen in either case regardless of if you have this device or not. But then they also tell us that it's going to cause a lot of harm because you're going to lose it. Ladies and gentlemen, that this motion clearly says this device as in, it's basically by the virtue of its existence or virtue of its possession. Just because you have it, is it going to do harm to you or good? They base their entire case on what happens if you lose it. That's just one extreme case, and they have been constantly arguing about that extreme. And also, if you lose it, you can pause back in time, and therefore it gives you more time to think back about what you can do to get it back. Now, let's talk about the major clash points in this debate. Firstly, it's about, is there more harm or is there more good? What are the harms that they tell us, right? So they tell us that it's going to harm the individual because it's going to make him lazy and it's going to make him indisciplined. But we tell you that you have to do that task no matter what, regardless of if you're pausing time or not. And we also tell you about how it increases your potential, how it's better for your mental health, etc. They also focus a lot on bad experiences, how they're necessary to live in life. But ladies and gentlemen, notice how you still have to live through that bad experiences because you always have a choice to pause or not. And we tell you that individuals don't want to do it. I as a person would not want to live through that bad experience. Sure, it sounds very poetic to say this change or shape your life, but be for real, would you like to go through a situation like that? Because it's about what makes me happy, what matters to me more, because I am the actor in this particular motion, and if I had this device, obviously I would use it. And moreover, they also tell us that life becomes easier or would it become worse. We talk to you about productivity. We talk to you about how it makes you more efficient, how it helps you to multitask things, and while doing all this, you do not feel burnt out. On their side, they tell us that, oh, if you don't use this device, you will become less lazy. Okay, then what? Because you have to do that task regardless of what. And due to all those reasons, I think we're going to speak.
Thank you for a very nice presentation. Your fellow 16 prop, please raise their points.
Good morning, honorable judges, fellow debaters, and to everyone else present here. I stand here as the reply speaker of the proposition. I will be the house that believes that the device in mention would do way more harm than good. I, as a reply speaker, will be going over the debate which we have just taken part in and summarize it and explain why we, the proposition, take this debate home. First, so far there were no real flashpoints as they misunderstood the definition that we stated. We, the proposition, were supposed to define the motion. They leave out a crucial aspect in all of their arguments, which is the consequences of actions on others. When you discuss something of such importance, of something which could affect the entire world, even time travel, imagine, it's so intricate. You need to consider every single aspect, not just one small tiny little aspect which is the effect on the individual or whatever that is that they said. And as our speaker 3 stated, the opposition went careless in their arguments. They kept mentioning pausing time, and the speaker 3 of her team completely shut down whatever they said, because majority of their points were based on the idea of pausing time. Nowhere in the information slide does it say that we have the ability to pause time with this device. It said we can reset or restart, go back to whatever the save point is. We do not pause this. We do not pause time. If this was a game, we can't pause it. We just load a new save. And now the opposition also completely misunderstood the use of the butterfly effect. It was an analogy, it was an example. And as Speaker 1 stated, it is a well-known fact that small actions in the past can make big changes in the future. Look, I don't think that this is something that is very objectionable, because we know that even the smallest actions can make big changes. I'm sure there is someone in this life, maybe a small smile, maybe a warm gesture, that may change your entire day. There is a famous poem I read too by Robert Frost. But a dust of snow, yes, of course, dust of snow. It focuses on how smaller things can make big actions. That's something like the butterfly effect. And why would a butterfly's wings stopping even do anything? Which is something that the opposition said. We are not talking about pausing time. And the opposition clearly did not understand the motion, even with the help of an analogy. The repetition of the use of time pausing invalidates several of their points. Now, the proposition also mentions how the purpose of life is to live it. Chaos is a part of life. The point of life is to make mistakes, learn, and to grow from all of them. They are key to living, actually living life and enjoying it. Several of the arguments from the opposition make the device seem nice and good just because of the hedonistic lifestyle that it helps feed. Nowhere in the info slide does it say that the stakeholder is only the individual. It does not say that anywhere. And like I stated earlier, we need to consider all members of society as stakeholders in this situation. And they mention how the proposition we, the proposition, don't address the effects on the individuals. The opposition mentioned how the proposition does not address any of the effects of this machine and its uses on the individual. But is that really true? I, myself, as speaker 2, devoted 2 entire arguments about the effects of this device on the human psyche. And they also seem to completely ignore the fact that people do bad things. It's a known fact. Like, why do we do bad things? Because it gives us a sense of pleasure at the moment, and if we could experience that pleasure over and over again, I mean, I think we're all aware of this whole dopamine loop thing, over and over again. What would really stop us, the user, the possessor, from experiencing that pleasure over and over again? Of course, we get addicted to it. We are considering the individual. Considering the individual. The bad things done by him can't be corrected if there is no one there to correct him. He'll just be free. No restrictions on him. And one small chance adds up every second. Each small chance you get from time traveling. The opposition said that the chance has a low probability. Now, the misdirection of arguments from their side, ignorance of several aspects of the motion, and lack of attention and misunderstanding of the motion show how we, the proposition, the house with the logical arguments, the house that shut down the house's arguments, rest of which were the same as the fixed mistakes points, show that, which were shut down by speaker 3, show how we, the proposition, take it to vehicle. Thank you.
Very good. Fourth, as you know, you're going to have the result in the auditorium, so please excuse yourself while we confer among yourselves. Okay. I'm leaning towards you guys will all say what we want, and then I can explain why. So we're tied at it. 1, 2, 1, 2.
No, we're not.
Okay. I'll explain why I think I think this is an active motion. So everything they say about society is relevant. Okay, so everything they say about whether or not society at large will be impacted is relevant. So I nullified all those points. I think they make a better case as to explain why me as an individual will face less harm than good from using the machine. And they do this through mechanization, they do this by saying that not only can I go back and kind of see what I